Now, at this point of time, Vladimir Putin appears to be in no mood to listen to the global clamour for an immediate end to hostilities. In contrast, he's put his country's nuclear arms on high alert. Now, since this provocation, the question, of course, has become all the more relevant as to how many nuclear weapons that Russia possesses. So let's take a look at the latest numbers. 9 countries possess roughly about 12,700 nuclear warheads as of early 2022. And Russia sits right at the top. Russia and the United States own more than 90% of the world's total warheads, and the US is estimated to have about 5,428 nuclear weapons, while Russia has more nuclear warheads than the Americans at 5,977 at different sites. The question, of course, is, will Vladimir Putin press the button? His foreign minister has said that the Western politicians are thinking about it more than the Russians.
Everybody understands that the Third World War can only be nuclear. But I want you to pay attention that it is in the heads of Western politicians that nuclear war is always revolving, and not in the heads of the Russians. This is why I assure you that we will not allow any provocations to force us out of balance. But if a real war against us starts developing, those who carry out such plans must have a think, and I believe those plans are being carried out.
Meanwhile, the United Nations Human Rights Chief has slammed Russia's attack on Ukraine, warning of a massive impact on the rights of millions of people. She's also called out on Moscow for Putin putting the nuclear forces of Russia on high alert. She has cautioned that a heightened nuclear threat level actually is a risk for all humanity.
The attack that began on 24 February is generating massive impact on the human rights of millions of people across Ukraine. Elevated threat levels for nuclear powers, weapons, underline the gravity of the risk to all of humanity.
Besides nuclear weapons, the Russian deterrent also includes a massive arsenal of ballistic missiles with conventional warheads, modern cruise and short-range missiles and hypersonic weapons. But it is the nuclear capacity that makes Russia a force to be reckoned with. The sheer number of nuclear warheads available globally becomes even more terrifying when looking at how swiftly they can in fact be launched and as to how many countries they can target.
I think it barely matters where the weapons are located, and it almost barely matters the details. They have over 2,000 operationally deployed warheads, and that is enough to inflict totally unprecedented damage on a global scale. It's beyond what is imaginable.
So far, more than 1 million people have fled Ukraine into the neighbouring nations since Russia launched its full-scale invasion over a week ago. The United Nations Refugee Agency has projected that more than 4 million Ukrainian refugees may eventually need protection and assistance. Many Ukrainians have now fled into neighbouring regions, and just over half of those who fled Ukraine have managed to cross over into the west, into Poland. And before the crisis, Poland was already home to almost about 1.5 million Ukrainians. Hundreds of people boarded the train in Lviv and then left for Poland. The crossing at Medyka witnessed many young families walking across the border carrying their belongings. There were scenes of emotions as people embraced once they were met on the other side. A train carrying refugees from Ukraine, mostly women and children, arrived in Poland's Przemysl, close to the border with Ukraine. Volunteers and first responders, along with Polish soldiers, provided them with food and other essential supplies. The volunteers and officials across the region are seeking to resettle the growing tide of refugees. WION is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news on the move.